Yeah, so maybe just to give a really brief introduction, I've been in or working with strategy and transformation for the last 25 years or so. And about 2 years ago, I tried ChatGPT to do a strategy analysis. And quite frankly, I paused and was really impressed by what it produced. And it was at that moment that I suddenly realized that AI was just going to change how we live and how we work. So over the last few years, I've really lent into AI. I've done some formal study, and then earlier this year, I stepped out of an executive career to found the Uncertainty Lab. And the idea behind it's pretty simple. It's really that uncertainty is our new normal. And I really think I want to help leaders make sense of AI and help people to, think strategically, act ethically, and really feel confident to lead themselves through this uncertain period as we move into this kind of age of AI.
And you have a background in crisis response management. Could you tell us a bit more about how this experience relates to AI as it is right now?
Yes, so whilst I have spent a lot of my career in strategy and transformation and helping work through sector reform and enterprise transformation, I've also worked at Australian Red Cross as state director. I've led through bushfires. I've led through the pandemic. And in Australia, we had the Black Summer bushfires, one of the worst bushfires in the last 100 years in this country, burnt out so many hectares, it was about the size of the UK. And I live in Melbourne, Victoria, in Australia. We had the one of the longest lockdowns in the world, 262 days. So I have spent a lot of time doing emergency response, and I've learned a lot about navigating not just through change, but through crisis. And I think a lot of those lessons apply as we go through. I don't want to call AI a crisis, but I do think it is a significant disruption. So I think probably three key lessons come to mind. One, you've got to lead through uncertainty, whether it's transformation, whether it's AI disruption, whether it's crisis. You don't have all the information you need, and you're not going to. And you need to understand that, and you need to be prepared to act in the absence of information. So I think for all of us navigating AI at the moment, recognise it's uncertain, recognise you're not going to have the information, but still move forward. The second lesson I would share is it can be exhausting. Our Black Summer response lasted for 3 months. Our COVID response here in Australia lasted almost 2 years. You've got to be able to sustain yourself, whether it's crisis, disruption, change on an ongoing basis. So it's about looking after yourself so that you can actually navigate the change sensibly. And the final lesson I'd draw from is actually a values-based one. So you're dealing with uncertainty, you're dealing under pressure. You've got to have a reference point for the decisions you make, and you need to let your values guide you. And again, I think in the AI context, that's just super important. There are so many values-based decisions to be made. So it's never been more important to know who you are, what you believe in, and how to use those values to help, you to navigate decisions as we go through this period of uncertainty.
What do you think the major risks of AI are?
Well, they're many and varied, aren't they?
Right.
I tend to think of them. I tend to think of them probably in three broad categories: technical type risks, societal type risks, and risks about people and humans. Um, Technical risk, my mind goes to data manipulation, issues with privacy, environmental challenges, opportunities for cyber attacks, all those type of things. I think in the societal space, it's questions about power, impacts on workforce displacement, what's the society we live in and how is it changing? And then on a human level, there are all of the risks around safety, mental health, impact on loneliness, emotional dependency. So yeah, I think lots and lots of risks around AI. I'm excited about the power and possibility of AI, but also very cautious and mindful of the significant range of risks.
Hmm. So this might be a very basic question, but I'm still interested in hearing your view on it. So there's this transformation happening in society right now because of AI. We can always discuss how impactful it is. There are many different opinions on it. Um, it will be impactful, but how impactful is really hard to predict. So compared to other times of disruption in our recent history for humanity, like humanity's recent history, how do you think that the AI transformation, so to speak, of society is different from other times of this great disruption?
I think it's the size of it and the speed of it. So I think it is going to be not only once in a generation type change, but really once in a multi-generational type change. I do put it up there equivalent with, the Industrial Revolution and some of those major changes in history. I think it will unpack over time. And I think it's going to fundamentally shift a lot of things. So I guess I sit more on the spectrum that this is a very significant change, and it's actually why I'm so passionate about people engaging in it and learning more about AI and coming to terms with it and being able to support themselves and their communities and their families and their organisations through this.
And how do you think we can protect our human values in the midst of all this disruption?
Yes. Nothing like an easy question. I think it comes down to what I mentioned before, which is one, you've actually got to know your own values and you've got to think about them very mindfully and you've got to think about how to apply them. So, what do we value? I think the impact that AI is going to have on human connection, uh, the loneliness epidemic we're suffering, the mental health, some of the other issues. How are we actually going to think about that as AI extends into how much it's used in what contexts. And so I think it's about knowing what your values are. Do you value human connection? Do you value mental health and well-being? Do you value an inclusive society? Do you value equal access? What do we value? And then how do we actually consider that? And so I think it's about knowing your values, being mindful of that, and then actually trying to do that piece between thinking and translation. How are you actually going to apply those values in a particular context? And I think that's almost the hardest piece in some respects. I think a lot of people do know their values, but it's how do you actually translate them in the moment when you make decisions about your career, when you make decisions about organisational implementations, actually just, thinking about how to translate them.
Okay. Another thing I'm curious to ask you about. So you're based in Australia. How does Australia as a country right now approach some of the risks and dangers pertinent to the dependency on US tech platforms? So I can tell you just for context, you probably know that in the EU, recently there have been many discussions about the risks of relying on cloud servers from Amazon and Microsoft. And American tech products are so enveloped in our culture, our critical infrastructure, our way of being almost. Uh, are there similar discussions in Australia, or do you think it's more talked about in the EU?
No, look, I think like elsewhere in the world, there are many and varied perspectives on all of this. It's interesting, isn't it, how AI overlaps the geopolitical context. And from an Australian perspective, we're obviously trying to balance our relationship with China, who's a major trading partner, who's a very close power to us geographically speaking, our long-standing alliance with the US. So there's an entire geopolitical overlay where we're trying to navigate, I guess, multiple factors. I think we do care about data sovereignty and AI, but I think we're also struggling as a country to come to terms with their level of regulation, the level of all the different layers of what our relationship is, how do we regulate what's actually needed, and how to balance that out. So, interestingly, Australia has one of the lowest levels of trust in AI generally. So, I think there is, definitely a sub dialogue around data sovereignty and LLM sovereignty and what sort of role we need to play from an AI perspective or what AI infrastructure and capability we need to have. But I think it's overlaid more with other conversations about the role in AI, the role AI is going to play, how much we need to legislate about that, how much we trust AI. And I think all of those things, are unresolved. They're a work in progress, like they are in very many other places in the world.
Would you rather see AI very lightly regulated so there's more room to experiment, or would you like to see strict regulations like the EU, like in the EU?
Yeah, that's an interesting one. I think I would lean more towards where's the happy medium? I think a regulation has a critical role to play. I think, like the rest of the world, we're probably going to lag in our regulation, and the capability is going to get ahead of our regulatory environment. I don't believe regulation is a panacea, and I think it's also about including building up trust, building up competency and fluency, working with the community mindset about ethical use of AI and bringing all of that to bear on it as well. So I think we're struggling in terms of there are different views in Australia about the level of regulation that is required. And yeah, I think we're still kind of working that through.
But you have successfully adopted a minimum age on social media up to 16. I think that's a great initiative. And that also shows that Australia is capable of making bold laws and like moving ahead, similar to the EU in terms of regulation. So I think that's really cool.
Yeah, I do agree. I think that's generated, as I'm sure you can imagine, a lot of community debate, but absolutely at the community level, there is generally speaking a lot of support for that. I think there's already a recognition that, the digital horse is bolted, so to speak, with social media and the appreciation that perhaps we didn't collectively understand some of the harms, the mental health harm, the social connection harm, some of the bad side of the social media space. And I think that is a precursor to some of the lessons that we'll need to apply into a forward-looking space of AI in terms of what can the technology do, what are the intended and unintended consequences of its use, and how do we kind of manage and mitigate that. So yeah, I think that is a good example of where we have taken perhaps close to a world-leading stance. But I guess I'm not sure. To me, that's a moment, but there's a lot of moments, if you like. We need to take a very systemic view to this, and there's a lot of pieces of the puzzle that need to fit together.
Yeah, right. So there's no reason to be overly optimistic yet.
I think it's a really good step, but there's so many other factors at play here. And it's a good example of how regulation can be used. And there are critics of it as well as to whether or not it is going to be effective and what it is actually achieving. But it's a good example of how you can put a foundation piece in place that helps. It signals intent, doesn't it? It signals direction. It shows that we are taking a stand. It's bringing community focus on it. But you've got to look at public education, awareness, compliance, some of the broad issues at play. So yeah, absolutely a good first step, and good that we're sending that signal and looking to protect it. To me, it's more highlighting the underlying values that we're seeking to protect and the various ranges measures we may put in place to try and achieve, a target outcome.
So to go back to your work, you might have answered this earlier a bit, but if nothing else, to sum up, what do you think leaders, and particularly executives, should be aware of when faced with this transformation in society that is currently happening due to AI?
Yeah, look, I think there's a couple of suggestions I would make. One, as I did mention before, I really believe that people need to build their AI fluency. You can't lead what you don't understand. You can't live through it. It's really important to build up an awareness of what's happening. So I think that's important. I also think another thing that's important is to recognize that yes, AI is a technology, but I don't believe it's a technology change. I think this is a cultural change. It's going to be a societal change at an organizational level. It's a business change. So I think it's about thinking of it very holistically and understanding the broad impact that this technology is going to have in a much broader context than that. So I think it's about broadening your perspective. And the final point I would make is disruption is inevitable. That's my position. But How you respond to it is absolutely your choice. And there is an ability to have agency here. There are many things that we can't control, but you can lead yourself and others through disruption. And we all need to consciously consider what is happening in the world, what does it mean for me and for those people in my community and my ecosystem, and what am I going to do to respond to that. I think that's, what I'd encourage everyone to sort of think about.
So if people are looking for help to deal with this transformation, how can they reach you?
So through my website, www.uncertaintylab.com.au. Happy to chat anytime.
Sure, I'll make sure to link to it in the post. So okay, Sue, I
Fantastic.
think we'll keep it brief and short. Thank you very much for joining me here today.
Thanks, Tobias.